And good afternoon, Ozarks. Carol just pointed out this is our 5th show, which means we beat the over-under for how long this show would last. So we're doing good there. We're going to cover a bunch of topics today. Don't really know what they are. Probably hit the recent Supreme Court decision that dropped today.
Yes.
And just some other stuff, whatever comes to mind. Right after this. All right. Well, while I'm on Carol's phone sharing our broadcast around, I can't find it. There it is. Find it. Let's see what's going on.
Do you want me to talk about my week? Do you want to say, hey, Carol, how was your week?
Hey, Carol, how was your week? Talk amongst yourself.
So it was fun. It was a super fun week. And, not a lot of super exciting things, but I did go have sushi with a friend of mine that I kind of re-met at the Lawn and Garden Show, and so that was amazingly fun. And
what is your go-to sushi roll? Do you have one that you like better than other stuff?
So you know Mia,
sure, Jay and Mia,
right? So
Zumi Hitaki, great sushi place, Hibachi, downtown Springfield.
We used to have the sushi club there that Will started years ago. So Mia, so I went and I saw Mia, and so of course it was like hug, how have you been? Oh my God, blah blah blah. And so she brings me out just a sample roll.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I love it when they do that.
It was really nice because I was just getting it to go, and so I ate it, right there in the lobby, because it was like I was just supposed to eat it, and I'm like, what? This is like amazingly good. What is this? And she's like, it's the Walmart roll because everybody loves Walmart. I'm like, oh my God. So
interesting.
It was really fun. So that was super fun. And then, so sometimes I'll tell client stories on my Facebook page.
Sure.
So I had this client that was in jail, and so they were bringing her over for court on Tuesday. And she had come over before, and she had been really hateful and kind of mean-spirited and like shot me dagger looks and just stared me down and stuff like that.
Really?
So it was a very unpleasant experience.
Sure.
So I wasn't really looking forward to seeing her again, but, come on, let's rip off this Band-Aid, get it done, and go on. And so she walks in, and it's just me and her in the courtroom, because I meet with them individually, and the bailiff and the police officer.
Right.
And I'm like, hey, I don't know if you remember me, I'm Carol. And she looks at me, and she's like, you have nice boobs.
Okay.
So I literally put my head down on the desk and I'm just laughing because, it was just, especially because I was expecting this really hateful, mean-spirited person. And so the police officer was like, and I'll use a fake name, Mary Beth, don't say that. And she's like, well, she does. I hope that doesn't sound gay. And I was like, well, it sounds a little gay, but that's okay. And plus it's better than saying I have bad boobs. So
I guess that's right.
Thank you.
You can always look on the bright side, can't you?
But it's one of those things when I walk into court and I just have no idea what kind of place my clients are going to be in.
Isn't that the truth?
So
I wish I had some stories like that. I don't think that I do. A couple stories stand out from like when I was a prosecutor. Cause weird things happen.
Yes, with criminal clients.
Sure. The one guy, of course, we got all the time. You'd have somebody arrested and charged with possession,
right?
And
of a controlled substance, of drugs.
Substance, right? We were talking marijuana. Let's just say back when that was still a crime, and twice I had the not my pants defense. You know what I mean? You've heard that one, right? It's
do.
like they found it in your pants pocket, and like it wasn't my pants. You were wearing them. They weren't my pants. I'm like, I don't. Anyway, the guy that I thought was the most fun. I always like it when people use words and they don't know what they mean.
Oh, that is kind of fun.
Had the old boy in, and he was charged with possession of a controlled substance, marijuana.
Sure.
Well, he had a prior, and he was on probation for the prior.
Oops.
Right? I had both files. And so what I said to him is, tell you what, this is pretty common. You plead on the new one.
Right.
We won't revoke your probation on the old one.
Right.
He looks at me and says, well, that's double jeopardy. Well, it's not. And you're using words that you don't know what they mean. So, here's your offer. Take it or leave it. I was not a good prosecutor because I was not patient. I was not a good line prosecutor to deal with the public coming in.
Right.
Because I lacked the filter and the patience for doing that.
Right.
I mean, I was okay, I guess, but
I'm sure you were delightful.
Routinely, people would come in. They'd want us to fix their speeding ticket, and I just didn't want to hear it. Right?
Yeah.
So I'm like, hey, here's the deal. You can plead guilty to non-point speeding. It won't go on your record. This will be the fine. And be like, well, the officer. I said, hey, just a second. You can tell me anything you want to tell me, but the only thing that's going to happen is this deal's going to get worse. Mm-hmm. The more you tell me, the more likely it is I'm going to decide that you don't deserve this deal, and I'm going to take it away. So, what do you want to tell me?
Right.
Nothing. Okay. Well,
right.
Let's go. And
Great.
we do that way. So those are my younger, harsher days. I've mellowed quite a bit since then.
Haven't we though?
Yeah.
I have mellowed quite a bit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I've been a judge now for 20 years.
That just doesn't even seem possible.
Yeah. Sat a municipal court, part-time. So that changes your perspective a little bit.
It's fun. So I was I worked with a guy that was kind of harsh. He was a harsh prosecutor and stuff. And so then he left the office and he became a part-time judge. And so he came back and was talking to me and he was like, wow, this is hard. He's like, I was wrong. I was completely wrong. So he had a whole different perspective of the weight, of being a judge carries.
It is harder. It's hard to be a judge because you do have to try to decide what's right. And you have all these competing interests, and, you're not going to make everybody happy.
Right.
Particularly when you've got pro se defendants, and that means somebody who's representing themselves without a lawyer.
Right.
Because they're at such a significant disadvantage.
Absolutely. Mr. Double Jeopardy.
Yeah. And you're a judge. You can't help them.
Right.
I mean, we're not allowed to help them, so you just have to kind of watch them struggle through. Mm-hmm. And it can be very frustrating. I'm sure it is. And then, you usually have a police officer on the other side. Police officers that are in your court all the time. You have your prosecutor. You kind of don't want to make them mad, but you have to hold them to the correct standard.
Right.
You really want. I always wanted, when I found a defendant guilty,
right,
particularly the pro se, I wanted them to understand that I really didn't have a choice.
Right.
Like, if this standard was met, I have to find you guilty. It's not not that I don't like you.
Right. Not that I don't believe you.
Not that I don't believe you. I just don't have a choice. And I think a lot of I never had a difficult time making a decision. And usually it's because the self-representing defendants would unintentionally confess. Every time. Have I told the story about the school bus stop arm cases?
No.
So twice, as a judge, I had a defendant request a trial for disobeying the stop arm of a school bus, which I count as a very serious offense.
It really is.
Yeah, it really is, because you're going to kill somebody.
Well, you can't see kids. If kids are passing in front of the bus and you're behind them and you're coming around, no matter what speed you're going, even if you're going 5 miles an hour. Yeah. So go ahead with your story. Sorry.
No, not at all. So twice I had somebody request a trial. Now, the city, the prosecution goes first, and they present their case, and they always have the bus driver, and the bus driver is going to testify. This is where I was, this is what I did, this is, all those little factors. And then they're going to say, this was the car, this was the license plate. And then the police officer comes in, I ran the license plate, belonged to this person, so I made out the ticket to that person, right?
Right.
At that point, can I convict on that evidence?
I would say not, because you don't know who was driving.
Exactly. I don't know who was driving that car. I know what car it was. I know who owned that car, but I do not know who was operating the car at that time. In order for me to be able to convict, I think it makes a prima facie case. I wouldn't dismiss it for lack of evidence.
Correct.
There's sufficient evidence to get it to the next phase of that trial. But we have not identified the driver. At that point, to have you would have to have I saw who was driving, and that's the driver here in the courtroom today.
Right.
That's the evidence that you would need. So at that point, the city rests their case. If the defendant just says, I have nothing to present, I would find them not guilty.
Right.
I would have to, because we don't have the evidence. Invariably, both cases, the defendant will present their case. Well, when I got there, the stop sign arm wasn't out. When I approached this, blah, 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 blah. Well, now they've admitted that they were the driver of the vehicle, which was the only element missing. Mm-hmm. Now I have to find them guilty. Now, I guess we could quibble over who I believe about the stop arm being out and all those things, but all things being equal, you look at the scenarios. Even if it's close, you're going to find them guilty. You just stop for those stop arms.
Well, and if a school bus is stopped, why wouldn't you just stop anyway, regardless of whether or not you see the stop arm? I mean, are you going to pass? I mean, I would think that would be improper passing at a minimum.
Yeah,
that could be another
charge. Yeah, it could
charge.
be another charge. All that is to say, the old axiom, the man who represents himself in court has a fool for a client.
Absolutely.
Has always borne itself out to be true.
So speaking of criminal clients and judging and things like that, do you think in general that conservatives are more heavy-handed with sentences? Do you think conservatives in general want people to go to prison, want harsher sentences than liberals?
I think I don't know that I could put.
Oops, sorry.
Peril has a phone call. I'm going to take the call here. We'll be back in a few minutes right after Peril's phone call.
It's probably somebody calling about Medicare, Camp Lejeune.
We should answer the phone. You're on the air, Carol. Caller, you're on the air with Carol and Will. We should just take the call. We have a call-in show at that point. It'd be great. We've both been in front of a lot of judges, and we've been in front of Democrat judges and Republican judges, liberal judges, and conservative judges. Right. I would say I can't say that that's true one way or the other. I've seen Democrat judges be very harsh. We had a Republican judge locally who I think was virtually known for being lenient, and I've seen it the other way. So I don't know that I could put
could link those two things.
I don't think I could find a link to those two things based on my experience anyway.
What about the general populace?
I think it's shifting, and the reason I think it's shifting is because I think growing up, I think your conservatives, Republicans were very much law and order, throw the book at them, all of that stuff. But now your conservatives are the we don't trust the government people, and so we don't trust the police, we don't trust the court system. So I think there's so much distrust of government amongst conservatives now. I don't find that to be true either. On the flip side, I think that a lot of your conservatives are much more, if you are guilty, particularly of traditional crimes, I think the conservatives are much more throw away the key type people. Yeah. Right. Less inclined for recidivism or not recidivism. Recidivism is the opposite of what I'm trying to come up with. Rehabilitation oriented, I think.
You kind of stumble on that word. It's like they can be rehabilitated. What was the word? Rehabilitated.
Recidivism happens when you're not rehabilitated. You reoffend the recidivist rate.
Well, maybe in part of what we're doing today, just for everybody's information, is we're kind of just glancing on a lot of different topics.
Sure.
Just kind of keep building on that perceptions, and we're also kind of trying out some ideas, maybe for some future shows. Would this be something interesting to talk about? So maybe a future show would be treatment courts, because they have really taken off.
Yeah, and I'm a conservative, but I think they've done a lot of good.
Absolutely.
Particularly because I think that there's a lot of room for abuse there.
Yes.
But I don't think we're seeing that. I think we're seeing it really targeted to the right people. And I'll tell you, the judge that I thought did probably the best I'd ever seen of anybody do a treatment court was Mark Orr.
Really?
Yeah, he was so good. He was really good down there in Christian County. Just did a great job. I felt like with the way he handled his treatment court down there.
Wow, I never went to treatment court with him, but that's
I had a
nice
couple clients down there, and of course, if you showed up at the right time for your defense docket down there, drug court was before that. So if you got there early or it was running long, you get to watch it.
Oh wow!
Yeah, you get to see what happened, and it was pretty neat. Yeah,
I was invited as an attorney. I was invited to a couple graduations, and that always made me feel, really good because I didn't feel instrumental in any of that.
The client invited you?
Yeah, my client invited me.
I never got
so
invited.
that was
I don't know what I did wrong.
That
but
was
they
kind
never-
of fun.
They never invited me to their graduation.
Well, you're not a touchy-feely liberal.
No, that is
so,
true. That's very true.
So we're having treatment courts for not only substance abuse, but they're also for veterans. Sometimes they're veterans and
that's
their mental
kind of
health.
a new one since I
Yes.
practiced in criminal. But we had the mental health court, or they call it something they call it dual diagnosis
Yeah.
court. You had
Co-occurring.
Yeah. Okay. Is that the new word?
It's
that
the
we-
new, yeah,
that's
and
the-
it'll be different, in a couple of years.
Sure,
so,
but you have a
know,
substance abuse problem and you have a mental health issue,
Right.
And which often go together.
hand in hand,
Yep.
almost all the
So they
time.
would deal with those. So that was good. Being creative is always good. Because when you overload your prison system with people that maybe there's some other way to deal with it, then it's overcrowded for the people that really do just need to be there and have the key thrown away.
Right.
And so you've got to keep the people out of prison that you can keep out of prison so that you can keep the people that need to be in prison in prison. And that's something that everybody needs to think about, because you can think about, oh, we're letting all these people out of prison. Yeah, because they're overcrowded, and maybe we need to spend more money, maybe we need to build more prisons, or maybe we need to be a little more judicious about who we're putting in there.
Right, and also with the DWI courts and with the substance abuse courts, drug treatment courts is what we've traditionally called them. One of the fascinating things and one of the really great things that I think liberals and conservatives can agree on is, so for people to stop using, one thing that they do is get jobs and they pay taxes and they have homes and they have families, and so it just has a really amazing ripple effect throughout the community in their lives. So it helps the community. They're not reoffending. And so that's something, and they pay for the programs themselves.
Yep.
So it's kind of self-sustaining. So yeah, it's a really exciting movement. I think some courts have domestic violence courts as well, and just a lot of different things that addressing the problems.
I'll be honest, I don't have a lot of patience for domestic violence.
I do not either. I do not.
It's like there's an issue there, and that's a you problem, buddy.
Well,
And
yes.
it's not always men. We saw plenty of women offending there too.
I think the most recent stats I have read is 25% of victims are male, and those are male. So it could be a homosexual relationship. It's not.
Sure.
So there are but yeah, there are some women that will throw ashtrays and do all kinds of stuff. So
Pull a knife. You never
are
know.
very nice. Yeah.
I'll tell you what would be a good show that we could do here, and we could ask Sheriff Roy Cole to come on here. He's a major advocate for truth in sentencing, and so I think that'd be interesting to have him. We've talked about on Morning Waffle with him before, but it'd be a lot of fun to have him on here and talk about that. So
That'd be fun.
yeah, it would be a lot of fun. So we talked a little bit before the show. Supreme Court decision today, kind of historic, really.
Yeah.
Not necessarily because of what the decision was, but because of it was 9-0.
Rarely
All 9 of these justices all agreed as to overturning Colorado's banning Trump from the ballot. Yeah.
That is pretty fascinating. And it would be interesting to kind of Google and see if we could find out how many 9-0 decisions have there been.
That would be interesting.
Throughout. I'll do that
Okay.
for next week. So
Yeah, that sounds pretty cool. But yeah, I mean, kind of clearly the right decision. I mean, could you really find a different way on that? I mean, if it'd been you, would have been 8-1. If you'd been on there, like Carol's like, no. I'm putting my foot down.
I'd be like, Colorado, so go through those arguments one more time. just let me see. Come on. Like maybe there's something. No, not necessarily. And I haven't followed that case, to talk intelligently on it. So,
well, and not that I expect you to, but it was the idea that it was all the January 6th stuff. And they said under the constitutional amendment that says if you've committed insurrection against the United States, you're not allowed to hold public office. And so they just said, yep, we're taking you off the ballot because of that.
wow. No.
I guess maybe he's been charged. I don't even think he's been charged with that.
Right.
So that was a stretch. I think Maine attempted to do the same thing, but it didn't work. But I mean, I think that line of attack is probably gone.
Yeah.
And I'm just curious to what you would think.
And I agree with that. I mean,
I'm sure you do.
I do agree with following the law.
I appreciate that about you. But, there's the idea. I mean, in conservative circles, they're like, listen, if you're even the type of person that would try to keep your political opponent off the ballot, there's something inherently wrong with you.
Right.
Like, that's un-American.
Well, I don't know that it's un-American, and I don't know that it's Biden, that would be trying to keep them off.
Clearly
but,
it wasn't him directly.
Right, personally.
But, I mean, there was a group of people that said, we hate this guy so much, we're going to try to find a reason to not even let people vote for him. I mean, that's really a bridge too far.
Well, people died on January 6th. And I think it's hard.
Yeah, the gal that the Capitol Police shot
it's
died. That was the only death that was directly attributable to January 6th.
Well, so I think that people have difficulty with that, with the way that happened and the disrespect. And it's interesting from a liberal point of view. It's like, we perceive the conservatives to be all about respect for the country and everything like that. And the way that they stormed, the Congress and they went in and people were fearful and hiding and I mean, to me, it was horrific.
It was interesting. The other interesting. Well, it's because there's different perspectives on what happened too. I mean, you clearly had some people trying to get in through, but you also had like Capitol Police opening the door and holding the door open for people and letting them in. Now, that's tough.
So mixed messages.
It's a mixed message, and it's almost entrapment when you get right down to it. I mean, you've got.
No, it's not. No, it's not entrapment at all.
You don't think so?
No, it's not.
Because they were inclined to do it, therefore it's not entrapment?
Yes, because entrapment is but for the officer's actions, you would not have committed the crime. And so, yeah, they were there to. It
would be tough to determine that because, what if you're the, 10th guy back in line, you weren't really doing anything, but you're like, oh, well, they opened the door, I guess it's okay, we go in.
Well, if you didn't have an intent to go in, why wouldn't you just stay outside?
Well, because now we get to.
If you showed up,
they opened the door,
and you didn't have the intent to go in. Well, you walked, so obviously you had the intent to cross through the door and go in.
Maybe not. Maybe I was just watching what was going on. They pushed this guy behind me, shoved me through the door.
Of people were just like,
And I think from a conservative perspective, I'm glad we're talking about this. Is good. From a conservative perspective, you look at the way those people were prosecuted so harshly, right?
Do you think
20 years in prison? Pretty harsh. And you've got
threatening
hundreds of
public officials,
hundreds of other people through the summer of 2020, Antifa, that were vandalizing government buildings, threatening public officials, setting fires, destroying millions of dollars of public property. And you've got Democratic lawmakers posting their bail, and they're not being prosecuted for that.
What do you think the difference is?
I don't think there's a difference.
Why do you think that there wasn't the same repercussions on Antifa as on?
Because they're liberal, and the DOJ and the FBI, they are intentionally prosecuting conservatives and giving passes to liberal organizations. I think it's well documented.
Okay, well, I'm going to have to look into that.
Sure,
because my initial reaction is, to disagree. Mm-hmm. Just because for one, because I don't know a lot about it, but I would say it's akin to a lot of things have to do with outrage. So the way we reacted to 9/11 and that was, as we stopped, our country stopped.
Yeah, right.
And for a lot of reasons, it was a foreign influence. There were so many deaths. That had never happened on American soil. Colin Powell, who was an amazing presence during that time. I think he's a Republican, right?
Barely.
So take that and then take all of the children, all of the people that are dying in shootings to where we don't even hear about them anymore. There are so many shootings in America on a daily basis that they don't even make the news. That is horrific. So when you take small things at a time.
What does that have to do with vandalizing government buildings?
I think that, so I don't think
because 9/11, we didn't vandalize government buildings.
No, I understand. But I'm just saying that Antifa, I don't know that have they had an event as significant as January 6th, do you think?
Multiple.
Where someone has died?
where someone has died. Well, yeah, we've got people where people have died. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. So I will look, I will have to study on that.
Okay. Yeah. You can,
And if you're
I
right,
think you'll find
and
multiple
if you're right,
occasions where people died and were assaulted. You look at the autonomous zone in Seattle.
For our audience, can you explain what Antifa is? I think some people may not know what it is. I'm sorry.
Antifa, it stands for anti-fascist, which to me is laughable because their techniques are textbook fascism. We're going to hide our face and we're going to use violence to intimidate our opponents.
Okay.
How is that not? That's fascist. That is exactly what fascists do. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's I find it amusing,
Laughable, yeah.
laughable that they would consider themselves to be anti-fascist when they are
Okay.
absolutely fascist.
Thank you for that
Yeah,
explanation.
no, happy to do that. But you look at the autonomous zone in Seattle that was set up with this whole.
Right.
I mean, it wasn't an Antifa enclave, but it was that same type of spirit, BLM, Antifa, all of that. We're going to reject government. We're going to set up our own thing. You had this place where people were getting murdered and raped and all of that within that community because they would not allow police in there. So that would be one example of something like that has happened. Mm-hmm. And there's been, really nothing to come from that either.
I think that would be an interesting topic.
Yeah. Well, it's good. So we can do that. As we're talking, I've thought a little bit about, on a different topic, we've had some brief conversations about pro-life, pro-choice. I had a really good idea that I think solves your problem.
So I don't have a problem at
Well, maybe
all.
it solves my problem. Sure you do, because nobody can get an abortion in Missouri. That's not a problem for you?
That's a huge
I
problem.
thought you had a problem with that.
I do have a problem
Okay,
with that.
so I believe you believe in federalism. I mean, you generally speaking, you like the idea that this state and that state can have different laws. That's a good thing, right?
Sure.
Okay. But that
I feel like you're setting a trap, so I'm just like,
100%.
oh, my man.
Of course. You're being cross-examined right now. We're setting you up. No, I'm not really. But that is one of the things that creates kind of the dissonance for you is that, well, it's not fair that poor girls in Missouri can't
Right.
get abortions
Right.
because they can't afford to travel to a state where it's legal.
Right.
Whereas more well-to-do rich girls, they
Right.
have the affluence, they could travel to
Right.
Kansas, which is as far as you have to go.
Right.
Illinois, that's as far as you have to go.
Right.
And so to you, it's what I heard you say was it's an equality issue. It's not fair.
That's one of my
Okay.
thoughts.
Well, that was the major takeaway I had.
Yeah.
That
Yeah.
was unfair. I was just thinking, rather than spending billions and billions of dollars to try to change Missouri law, how about we set up, not me, but you can, set up a nonprofit and give all that money to pay for girls to be able to go to another state for their abortion.
Sure.
There you go. And see, then we don't have to try to change Missouri law. Missouri law can be what Missouri citizens want it to be. Kansas can have a Kansas law. And then you just, instead of spending all that money trying to change the laws, you can just, solve your problem that way.
I do believe in using money wisely.
Uh-huh.
I do believe in that.
So, and along those lines, and I'm not being facetious, I'm just saying, aren't we really throwing good money after bad, fighting about that issue that could be put to better use? And maybe that use, from your perspective, is paying for these girls to maybe they got to fly, maybe they go to fly to Canada, maybe they got to, fly to Europe or whatever. I mean, France just passed, they're trying to pass, and they're going to pass a constitutional amendment that enshrines in the French Constitution the right to an abortion. It's going to pass overwhelmingly because abortion's not in any danger in France. There's no pro-life people in France at all that I'm aware of.
Wow.
But they're going to put in their constitution. And so, you could have this, not for profit. So we'll fly you over to Paris and you can get your abortion.
I'll be your escort.
Yeah, see? And then all of the rancor, all of the fighting, all of that, and all of the resources wasted on that just goes away. You're always going to have California. You're never going to go to France
and
Colorado and New York.
Right. And kind of it's and it's interesting because, kind of one of my gut reactions is I shouldn't have to.
Mm-hmm.
I shouldn't have to go to another state. I shouldn't have to do that. And it's interesting because when other people say that sometimes, especially when we may be arguing about a point or something, and I'm like, but you have that opportunity to do that. You can do what you want. Well, I can't do it exactly the way I want to do it.
Yeah.
Well, but you can do it.
Right.
And so I know that when that came about, that on Facebook, of course my friends on Facebook were outraged, and things like that.
Decision.
Yes. And so we were just like, oh my God. And so it started a thing that I think was nationwide, is that, hey, if you know somebody that needs to go camping, and it was in quotes,
Yeah.
and I like to camp out of state, and I would be happy to take you camping out of state to, Kansas or whatever. And so that was a big push, and know that we're here for you kind of thing. And so sometimes when there is that outrage, it does have the result of bringing like-minded people together, on both ways. So yeah, I mean, I'm just so disappointed about that.
I'll never give you a dime.
I don't
to do that.
No, and I understand that, but I think that you would contribute to a Catholic home for unwed mothers.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah.
So yeah.
Totally. And we do that kind of stuff
right.
all the time. But
I think we probably need more of those.
Absolutely. Big fan.
Yeah. I am a big fan as well.
But I think that the fact that that's my solution for that is a conservative trait.
I'm not crazy about that solution.
I know you're not
but
crazy because you're liberal, and I think that illustrates actually one of the differences. Is I really believe that one of the main differences between a liberal perspective and a conservative perspective is a liberal perspective is always, how can we get the government to make other people do what we want, and a conservative perspective is, if this is what we want, I think a government is usually, today's conservative, that's our last choice. We're going to find another way to deal with the problem rather than involve the government.
Okay, I think it's the exact opposite. We're saying, don't pass, keep your hands off our bodies. Don't tell us what the heck to do. Don't legislate that. And that, to me, is a conservative value. Don't tell me I can't have my guns.
And
don't make me pay taxes for this stuff.
Because this one issue kind of looks like it reverses that.
It does.
But
It looks like it. Yeah.
Only if you look at it from a liberal perspective.
My God. Well, okay. So I think this is very interesting, but could we table this for now? Because
Sure.
I think it's like a whole show.
Oh, I'm sure it is.
If we want to do it.
Yeah. We will.
Oh, okay. I may be sick that day. I may be like, the snowflake over here is like, oh, my feelings might get hurt today.
Yeah, we'll table that for now. So, and we have it, but I want to throw this out there because it's not the same thing. But
okay, no, it's fine.
I think most legal scholars, looking at it purely from a legal perspective, kind of recognize that Roe versus Wade was pretty thin jurisprudence.
A stretch?
Pretty thin.
Yeah.
And I think it's one of those examples of hard cases make bad law. The people so wanted to create that right of an abortion, they wrote bad law, made a very poorly reasoned decision just to get the result they wanted. And which means Dobbs is your inevitable
result.
And it would have been better for a liberal perspective to have a better case and a better decision with better jurisprudence that would have been able to withstand a challenge. Because, I mean, really a lot of people, even that are very pro-choice, were like, yeah, it doesn't hold up. I mean, whenever you've got...
It held up for a long time, but yeah.
But intellectually doesn't hold up. When you've got judges talking about trimesters and things like that, I mean, you're out of your depth. And you know they're you may like the decision, you may have liked what it did, you may have liked that it held sway for 50 years, but it was not a good decision from a legal perspective.
Okay.
I mean, just, from a purely lawyer perspective.
Okay.
Even if I liked it.
This is Will's response.
It's just a bad decision. It wasn't well reasoned.
So, I had a tough week this week.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Based on the show.
Really?
Yes.
You have a hater?
No.
Haters gonna hate?
Oh God, no. No. Who would hate me?
I know.
That's
right?
insane.
Are you
That's completely
harassed
insane. No. No. So here's the deal. So we had the certificate of need with Gaylon, and
yeah,
amazing show. So I'm all pumped up. I'm all excited. She says something I think we've always heard, hey, it just takes 20 or 30 people to write into your senator and I know,
Get your wall.
and they'll be, and they'll vote on the law and it will pass and it'll be amazing. And I don't know why I thought that. And thought, so I'm talking to people and they're going to, write letters or they're going to, contact their congressman and things like that. So I take it back a step. I'm like, okay, the first thing I have to do is like read the law, make sure it says what it, what it should say, that kind of thing. And so then I contacted Senator Mike Moon's office, who is the sponsor of the bill.
Right.
And
but he's not your senator.
Correct.
Okay, yeah.
Correct. I also contacted my representatives. I contacted Lincoln Huff and Stephanie Hine, neither of which have got back to me.
Oh.
So I emailed both of them. So that was the second of a double whammy. So the first whammy was that I called a couple times Mike Moon's office and I didn't get an answer. They didn't call me back. Left a message. And so I'm an early bird, and I find that when you call places when they open, generally you have a much greater chance of getting good service and things like that. So I called the office at like 7:30 or 8 in the morning. Guy answered the phone. Amazing, so knowledgeable, and he sounded young, but everybody sounds everybody sounds young, yeah. And so, hey, I'm calling about this. He knew all about it. He walked me through it, and he's like, yeah, it's not going to get out of committee. And I don't know when or if it's ever going to get out of committee. He's like, the lobbyists are really strong. Yeah. The best we can hope for is to start a task force, and look at it that way. And so I was just, it's just like, it's like I was just so deflated, because he was very knowledgeable and he believed in it as well. And you could tell like they had put a lot of work into it. And it was just devastating to think that the people can't, it made me feel like the people don't have power.
Yeah.
And that was hugely disappointing to me, hugely disappointing. So what do we do with that?
Yeah, I don't know. I mean,
and I didn't tell you about this ahead of time. Here's the thing. So I suggested that we have production meetings. That we kind of go over stuff and we kind of plan stuff out. And like it's a whole big thing. And Will's like, no. And then, I was like, well, I'll get here early. We'll kind of go through things. So I'm kind of talking about things and Will's like, stop, save it for the show. And so when we're here and we're just like talking and it's like, wow, like you didn't tell Will that you were going to, like, you didn't tell him about this and you didn't like give him a chance to think about it or anything. I'm like, no, kind of like asking me about my favorite lawyer movie. And I was like, I don't know. So we don't practice anything. So I'm just... So we don't. So So
it's just honest, real conversations.
It is, and we don't prepare. The most we do is like I looked up the unemployment rate for Missouri today. That was my big foray into preparation for the show today.
I listen to the Albert Mohler podcast every morning. That's usually my preparation for most of my conversations during any given day. Is whatever Al Mohler has to say. That's what I want to know.
I've never.
It's brilliant.
I'm sure I would not think it's brilliant.
But I think you'd find it very interesting.
Okay,
actually.
well,
and
interesting is different than brilliant.
True. No, this is why you need to take that Colby evaluation. You will learn exactly why I do the way things the way I do things the way I do them.
I like, and I haven't argued about a single thing. So here's the other thing. So here's Will's take on shows. Will's like, yeah, so I contacted the person like in charge, like in the entire nation, I think, over fair tax.
Yeah.
And he's like, he's going to be on the show. I've got him booked. It's going to be April 15th. It's about taxes, it's about the fair tax, and he's like, and then I want to do something on COVID, so our March 11th show, we'll do it on COVID. And this is what poor Will Worsham gets from Carol Hutchison. Oh my God, look at this thing that's happening on Earth Day. We should go on location.
Which I'm trying to make happen. We're trying to make I was talking to Peter about it before Carol wants to do an on-location show on Earth Day. I think we're going to have to buy a new piece of equipment to make it happen, but we're probably try to do that. It'll be okay.
Well, maybe Hippie Chick Greenhouses can help co-sponsor
we'll
a little.
Yeah. No, well, why did these representatives, why didn't you just call their cell phone?
Oh, I called the number on their website.
I just call their cell phones when I want to talk to my
I'm a
reps.
Worsham, so I'm just like,
Talked to a state rep
listen.
on his cell phone today. He was driving up to Jeff City, and I'm like, give him a call. And actually he texted me, and he's like, I'm driving to Jeff City. Can you call me? So I called him.
That's so funny.
We were chatting about some stuff on the way up there. Some of it was legislative related. A lot of it wasn't. So,
That's cool. Yeah. Well, I've testified in front of a committee like only one time. I think you've done more
once.
than
maybe twice.
Okay.
I don't remember.
So I think you're more politically in tune, than I am. And I was going to tell you, so
Try not to be honest.
it's been kind of a fun, wacky week. So I want to go to the park board because I want to figure out, like how they feel about Lake Springfield plan, because I'm all about that. As
Yeah.
far as the environmental advisory board that I'm on, I already know how we feel about it. And then I'm going to go to the city council luncheon tomorrow. I'm just going to crash, so I'm pretty excited about that. And then I found like there's a couple committees that are like public involvement committee, community involvement committee. So those are going on in Springfield. So I'm kind of jotted those down. City council meeting. So I may stay up late on a Monday. I don't know. It'd be crazy. But I was thinking, so I had the really disappointing experience, where I felt deflated. But then I bounced back. And so this show has really got me connected to who I used to be, a lot more involved,
Nice.
a lot more thinking, intellectual conversations, wanting to make a difference, wanting to be involved. And I know that with me, and I don't know if this happens with everybody else, if you guys listening now or later feel this way, but I kind of go in stages where I'm just kind of living. I'm just kind of living my life. I'm raising my adopted son, or I'm, renovating a house, or, I'm getting a business off the ground or whatever. Mm-hmm. And it just feels like all I can do is get through every day, with all the things that I have to do on my plate. And so, and I think a part of that is being 61 and being like, listen, you don't have a lot of time. You need to get off your ass and get some stuff done.
Probably only got like 60 years left.
I love you, Will Worship.
Medical technology is advancing.
Okay, this coming from the guy, like, as I am reaching into the washer this morning, like, I hurt something. I'm just like, oh, my God. So
You heard something, or I heard something?
I heard something.
You heard something.
No.
I have a broken shoulder because
Yeah.
I fell on the ice.
I
but
meant to ask you how it was. I was thinking.
better. I think it's better. I get x-rays Wednesday,
Okay.
my third set of x-rays, so we'll see what's happening then. But I feel like I can move it better, but still about right there. It's like the pain kind of is like, nope, stop. You don't want to go any higher than that.
Oh my God. So it's 5:13, and I know we said we want to do about 45 minutes.
Yeah.
So but I'm just going to throw some things real quick, okay?
Yeah,
so
rapid fire.
this is going to be like speed dating, only fun. Okay. Recycling.
Okay. I think it's pointless, but we'll go on.
Well, we could do a show about that.
Yeah.
Student loans.
Student loans. Oh, yeah, that'll be fun, yeah. I think my quick take is if you want somebody to forget the student loans, you should go to the people that got the money. So the universities should be the ones to repay it, and not the taxpayers.
It's an interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, they're the ones that profited. So they're the ones, if the degree that they produced isn't good enough so that the loan can be repaid, then they're the ones that should have to come up with the money. If we're not going to make the borrower pay it, then the school should pay it.
Right. And I think you have young kids, who are not savvy, being, hey, I go to Mizzou or go to this college, go to that college,
You
and
get a gender studies degree.
And get a law degree. I mean, get a criminal justice degree. Get
You're gonna
whatever
make-
degree.
If you get it, different degrees have different value.
Well, and that is very true. They have different costs. But also, my perception is, and I don't know if this is true or not, but my perception is that educational costs, college expenses, have far outstripped inflation. They are,
100%.
yeah.
Yeah, no, we know that's true.
Yeah. Okay.
But why do you think that is? Why do you think college costs have gone up so much? Supply and demand. The money's there. We're throwing so much money in student loans. We're letting people borrow so much money. There's all this money out there. So, I can pay $100,000 for a college degree because I can get all this student loan money. So whenever the government pumps all that money out there, you're inherently going to get inflation.
Well, it needs to go. There needs to be education with that, like how much interest, like how much you're going to pay back,
the colleges are charging more than they should for what they're delivering.
Yes,
and that's because
absolutely.
they can.
That's the problem.
That's because they can, because the government's throwing all this free money at it. So there's a whole thing that needs to go there. But they're the ones that got the money. They're the ones that need to give it back.
Okay. I do not. I agree. I started to say I do not disagree, and I hate it when people like do the double negative. So interesting things, I like BBC News, and they've had this idea on this problem on for some time, for several months, and maybe almost a year, and it's that they're concerned about the aging population and that they don't have enough people to work, in order to, supplement all the cost of, the aging populace, healthcare cost.
This is an England problem?
Yeah.
Yeah, in England, yeah.
And I think there are other countries that are experiencing this problem as well. And I think Elon Musk said that he was doing his part in birthing a lot of kids. So thanks Elon. That's awesome.
I have 3 children, so.
I adopted 1, 0 population growth. So yeah.
I
yeah.
increase the population.
So, and in the very same BBC News report, it's like, what are we going to do with all these immigrants? I'm like, geez. I mean, I don't know. Like, if only there was something that could be done.
Only there was a job for them. Yeah, that's the whole immigration thing. I think is interesting too, because it's this little bit the same thing in the United States.
Absolutely.
We're like, we have all these restaurants that can't find workers, and
right?
Then like they're right there ready to work, but it's a problem with our immigration system, not really with this border thing. The border has to be secure. We just have to be better about looking at, well, what do we need to let in this country? What kind of jobs people do we need to be looking for the jobs we have available? And that's not what we're doing. We're saying, oh, if you're a rocket scientist, if you're a doctor, if you're an engineer, oh, come on in. But if you're just a laborer, where we're not letting you in. That's exactly the opposite of what we
need. Yeah. Absolutely.
We need to be letting those people that want to come in here, want to work, want to make money for their family, want to raise their family, want to support, want to have a good job. That's what we need. We don't need the people to come in that we've already got doctors, we've already got engineers that are going to come here, God bless them, and get a good degree, get good work for a while, and then go back home. I mean, that's fine. But if we look at the needs of our country, we need labor. We need labor. Let's get them in here. Let's get them in here honestly and legally, and make it happen for them. We got to figure out a way to do that.
Right. So I'm glad. I thought that might be a really hot topic where we were totally at odds with each other, but it sounds like we're not.
I think the reason you might feel that way is because, again, I think of that leftist media mischaracterization, because I repeatedly hear people say that conservatives are opposed to immigration. I don't know of any conservatives that are opposed to immigration. I know of conservatives that are opposed to illegal immigration. And we should all be opposed to illegal immigration because that's a crime. It's breaking the laws. And we should all be opposed to that. Now, we can look at it and say the immigration system is broken and needs to be reformed, and we can all agree with that. But again, I think we've got some leftist media out there that's pitting people against each other that don't really disagree.
So, and immigration is a problem in Europe as well. Mm-hmm. And so I guess my one of my biggest thoughts is, when you look at people, like, why do people leave their countries? Because it's unnatural to want to leave your country. Most people want to stay where they were born, where they have family, where they were raised, where it's their culture, yeah. And so that's a huge draw to stay. So in my estimation and in my reading and kind of a little bit of research, people leave because they don't feel safe and they can't feed themselves, and so those are the two major reasons. And so while we are looking at immigration, it's like maybe we should be looking at the reasons for immigration, and maybe we should be addressing those, because illegal immigration is going to continue to be a problem. And if you were in that situation, if Peter was if he wasn't safe, if you weren't able to feed him, you would do anything. I think you would do anything. Sure. I would cross illegally. I would enter a country illegally to save my child. Of course I would. How would I not do that? Right. And I think that's what we're facing. So anyway, those are just my quick thoughts.
That's clearly a piece of it. A piece of it. The question then becomes, what, if anything, can we do about it? And that's the other trick.
How can we do it fairly, and how can we not be overrun?
That's what's interesting is so much of this is interconnected.
Yes.
Because
Yeah,
you look
absolutely.
at issues like that and you're like, it's not like we don't give billions and billions and
Yeah.
billions of dollars of aid to these places,
Yeah.
because we do.
Yeah, we do.
So the problem is not there's not resources. The resources are there. The problem is you go into these countries, particularly in Africa, all of that aid just gets scooped up by these little warlords, and they turn around and sell it for a profit, and it never gets to the people.
Right.
So what do? Do you send in the military? Do we send in our military to go in and clean it up and enforce order?
That has not worked before
It really, well, it hasn't.
in another
it hasn't.
country. Yeah,
Sometimes
right.
it
Yeah,
has.
yeah.
Sometimes it has.
Right.
I don't know, but you know, there's it clearly not just spending the money.
Right. Right. Throwing money at a problem
Yeah.
is really not
And
an
we're,
answer.
as a country, really bad about that.
I agree.
Yeah, I know
And
you
I'm
do.
very frugal. So I don't like spending money unnecessarily in wasting it. So on that, we agree.
And we agree on many
We
things, which
do.
is the great
We
part
really
of this
do.
show. Look what we're showing people. It's all good.
Yeah.
So, yeah, fun. We ran our 45 minutes. We did pretty good.
We did.
We don't know what we're going to talk about next week, but we'll figure
No,
out
we
something.
do.
Oh, we do?
Yeah.
Is next week one? Oh, next week is COVID Revisited. Yes. Won't that be fun?
Yeah.
We'll talk about that. So next week, we're going to look back 4 years ago on COVID, because it'll be right at the 4-year anniversary.
It will.
When all that hit. So we're going to talk about that. A little retrospective. May have some guests on the show. We don't know. We'll figure it out. If we got some people that want to come in, and we'll do that. But stay safe until then. Bruce Porter tomorrow. Oh, Bluegrass show tomorrow.
Wednesday.
No, sorry, Wednesday. Thank you. Morning Waffle tomorrow. Wednesday, Bluegrass show.
I'm thinking about stopping by for that.
Yeah, you should. It'll
Yeah.
be a lot of fun.
I think,
It'll be a lot of fun.
I'm very excited. So, guys, go do something fun. Go volunteer. Go do something to help save the planet. Help out Will and I. We
Yeah.
can't do it alone.
And like and share Planet 417 so more of your friends can.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye.
guys.